Leicester Till I Die TV. Watch and subscribe on YouTube and listen on your podcast platform.
Hi everybody, Jerry Taggart here. Now be sure to watch Chris and Leicester Till I Die TV by subscribing on YouTube and following them on social media for all the latest Leicester City news and information. Come on you foxes!
Strap yourself in because we're set up, switched on and ready to go.
Seven, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
And it's live.
Good evening, fellow Fox fans. How the devil are we? It's Leicester Till I Die. Welcome along. It's getting ever so much closer to the kickoff of the new season. Can you wait? I know I can't. Leicester Till I Die, we are on Facebook, get my teeth in, Facebook, Leicester Till I Die, the group, Twitter at Leicester TID, and if you are on YouTube, and if you're not, please get over there ASAP. We are on Leicester Till I Die TV. We are nearly at the 1,000 follower subs mark, and we would really love to get to that. So go over, press me buttons, tweak me knobs, do whatever you want to, just make sure that subscribe button is pressed. Well, FA Cup winners, they call it the Community Shield. I like to think of it as the Super Cup because it is the Premier League winners and the FA Cup winners. So surely it is the Super Cup. We've got a special guest this evening. We'll ask him what he thinks. And it's special tonight in conversation
on YouTube and your favourite podcast platform. This is Leicester Till I Die TV in conversation with...
And it's Rob Tanner. Good evening, Rob. How are you, sir?
Good evening. How are you?
I'm as happy as a pig in the proverbial, as they say at the moment.
Fantastic. What a time to be a Leicester fan, eh?
Oh, isn't it just? Isn't it just? Thanks so much for joining us. Obviously, you were at the Mercury, you were the chief sports reporter for Leicester City, and you are Leicester City reporter at The Athletic, which is available online. You've also written a book about Leicester. There's so much to talk about, and there's going to be questions popping up, I'm sure, about transfers and contracts and everything. But surely the Community Shield is our Super Cup, isn't it?
Well, this is the interesting thing about it is Leicester City didn't recognise the Community Shield as an official fixture until now, and they, to be fair, they announced they acknowledged it before the win at the weekend, and I think that affected the Vardy stats. You know, whenever he reached a milestone, there were some national newspapers that said, right, he's reached this milestone, and the club would say, well, he's one goal away because we don't really recognise Community Shield, but it's a trophy. And I mean, one thing I've learned in the decade I've been covering Leicester City, there's until recently, there's not that many trophies in the cabinet, so it's great to get one in there.
Isn't it just? And as I was saying to Man, I've obviously been doing preview and post match with Man City fans. As I say to them, if you lose it, it is a meaningless pre-season friendly to raise a bit of money.
It's about fitness, yeah.
Yeah, if you win it, it's a major English trophy. So, hey, we could always, I don't know if you know anybody down at Spurs that you could have a word with, see if we could borrow their cabinet, because ours is a bit full now and theirs is empty.
Well, that's the thing about Spurs. They've got to win the FA Cup or the league to get into the Community Shield to have a chance of winning it. So, and they haven't done that for a while, have they?
No. And it was their year because it was like a 1 at the end, wasn't it? So it should have been Spurs' year. But it's nice to be able to And you followed Leicester, like you say, for a decade, but it's nice to be able to have this banter from the position that we are now in, and we spoke before about the attitude of some fans from different clubs and what have you, and we'll come on to sort of Maddison and Arsenal later, but it gets me with the Arsenal fans that they seem to think that because they are Arsenal, that players such as James Maddison would want, to walk over broken glass with bare feet just to get to them because of who they are. I mean, all right, it's a London club, so it could be any of the London clubs. I mean, and they've only had one bad year, and it's like, great disaster for them.
It's interesting, isn't it? The fans of the big six. I mean, we've seen both sides of them, haven't we? I mean, there is an expectation, there's a demand, there is almost an arrogance. But on the flip side, when the Super League stuff come out, that it was the fans of those clubs that stood up against their own clubs. Yeah, and which I found really inspiring and gave me a lot of hope still in English football fans. So, but it's really interesting, isn't it? That whole concept of Leicester are doing well, and there's always the praise and the plaudits from some pundits, but it always comes with a caveat at the end that like James Maddison, what a great player, he's doing wonderful at Leicester, but wouldn't he do well at Arsenal? Yes. And wouldn't Yuri Tillemans be outstanding at Liverpool? And but they're outstanding right now at Leicester City in a team that's been challenging in the top four for the last 2 years. But I don't think that'll ever change, unfortunately. And we've got to be realistic as well. We know that certain players over the last 5 years have wanted to move on to other clubs as well, and Riyadh and Danny Drinkwater and N'Golo Kante. So there is a realism about that as well. But I have to say, I was very lucky to be invited down to the new training ground this week with Ian Stringer and Jordan Blackwell from the Leicester Mercury. Yeah. And we were given a tour, half of the site, because the first team half of the site is still very much protected from COVID. But what I saw, unbelievable. And if you were a player and that's your office, that's your working environment day to day, what a place to turn up to every day. And, I mean, they might think the grass is greener at Arsenal, Man United, wherever, but they've got a fantastic environment to develop as a footballer at Leicester City, and they'll get the opportunity in the first team, and they've got a manager who will give them the opportunity in Brendan Rodgers.
How far have we come from the days when Martin O'Neill used to say he used to reverse people out into Filbert Street so that they could see the Carling stuff as they backed out onto the pitch, to that now? I mean, it's got, a hotel if they have to stay over. It's got the golf course ready for Gareth Bale when he comes to play for us. I mean, it is just... we know, like you say, I mean, this big six, it is very much, no disrespect to yourself, but it is very much a media thing, I think. If not any media, but certainly a Sky thing, that, the big six that will generate the viewers will never be that. But I think the difference now is, and I mean, I'm 60 this year, and I've followed Leicester, since my mid-teens, and we used to have to sell just to sort of survive. Now we don't need to.
No, we don't. And what I think about the developers of Leicester as well is that the attention to detail. I mean, we're talking about the training ground. I mean, we bumped into John Ledwidge, the head groundkeeper, who was working on one of the pitches at the time. So we went and had a look at the pitch, and he was telling us about the particular grass seed they use and some of the different things. I mean, that the electric mowers and the attention to detail at the place is just incredible. And that sums up Leicester City in this modern era, the attention to detail. When they sign a player, I mean, I did an interview with Patson Daka, and he said one of the things that amazed him was they knew everything about him, not just as a footballer, but as a person. They knew his background, his history in Zambia. The level of detail that goes into it and the time and research is phenomenal. And that is one of the secrets to where Leicester City are right now. It's that attention to detail.
And I think that goes back. I mean, I remember sort of, I think it was Cambiasso. I mean, I still have to pinch myself when I think that I have seen him play in a Leicester shirt. I've seen him on YouTube as well when he had hair, and it's difficult to put the. We all used to have hair though, didn't we? You know, that's the thing.
A long time ago.
Yeah, that's why I wear the hat. But even then, you know, he was saying like it was the fact that they kept in touch with them. They, you know, didn't let it drop, and it's. I've forgotten the guy's name, and I'm really embarrassed now. Who does the transfers for us?
Right now?
Yes.
Lee Congerton.
But
it was Steve Walsh
and John Rudkin as well.
Yeah, it was John Rudkin as the director of football. Yeah. And it was Steve Walsh who was the head of recruitment at the time. And it would have been Steve that does a lot of that personal persuading of people to come to the club. He is a very warm, genuine character, is Steve Walsh. And he would have had his fingers into Esteban. He would have been calling him every day, telling him all about Leicester City and enticing him over. And I'm sure he was a major factor in him coming. And interestingly, I did a piece with Matty James ahead of last weekend because he played against his brother in the opening game of the championship season. And so I did an interview with both of them. And I was asking him about him playing with Esteban. And he said just helped him raise his game because Esteban never gave the ball away. So there was no way he was going to give the ball away either. Because it looked terrible. So interestingly that how they get these characters and how they managed to get him, because he had a big impact.
Yeah, I mean, everybody, again, if you look at sort of fans of other clubs, and, you know, I sit here with a smile on my face and we joke, you know, said about banter about the other fans and what have you, but, you know, they talk about Leicester like our transfer policy and how we get it wrong occasionally, of course we do, but, you know, the likes of John, I've seen John Rudkin and Lee Congerton, I've seen them be slated, but, you know, they're doing something right, aren't they?
Well, let's not forget John Rudkin set up didn't set up the academy, but certainly ran the academy so effectively. And for many, many years, it remains his baby now. And look at the players that academy is producing, and it's putting the right people in the right positions. I mean, Steve Beaglehole is a massively underrated person, I think, internally. I think he's very valued at the club because what he does in terms of developing young players. I mean, I've got high hopes of Keenan Dewsbury Hall this year. I've been speaking to people at Luton for a year, and they've been raving about him. And you know, he's one of those players that apparently always looks like he's got time. And if you look like you've got time in the Championship, then you're going to be a player because it's harem scarum football, as we all know from our time in there. I've got high hopes for him. But you look at Harvey. We had Ben come through. Hamza's come through. This Ben Nelson lad, the Scottish centre-back, they got high hopes for him. Luke Thomas, what a player Luke Thomas is going to be, by the way. The temperament of that guy, he's ice cold. Nothing phases him.
At 19, he's got 2 trophies, which is 2 more than Jack Grealish has got for £100 million.
And what we worried about was when he made his debut. It was the perfect time for young players to make debut during COVID when the fans were away, because there's none of that external pressure, none of that crowd noise that can affect you. And we thought, how's he going to handle it after that? And then he goes and plays at Wembley as a Stormer. You know, he's the kid. Nothing seems to knock him out of his stride. So I've got high hopes for him.
What other 19-year-old playing against Man United would have run up behind Jamie Vardy, who is Jamie Vardy, shout him to leave the ball so that he can score? I mean, that's the confidence of the lad, you know. And I think bringing in, I mean, Ryan Bertrand is such a un-Leicester-like signing, but I have been so impressed with him in these pre-season games, and he's just going to bring Luke Thomas on so much.
Well, that's his role. His role is to give Luke time, because you can't throw everything on to Luke, especially when you got Europa League, FA Cup, League Cup, and all those Premier League games and the intensity of them. And obviously, when they lost Christian Fuchs, they decided that was it for Christian. They needed somebody with a bit of experience there with James Justin out injured. Ryan obviously worked with Brendan early on in their Chelsea days together. So Brendan trusts him, knows him. And from what I've seen of him, he's a very level head, great professional. He's going to have a big influence on Luke's development over the next 2-3 years.
Yes, I mean, but going right back then to the beginning, we were having a quick chat before we started, and probably younger days for us when we both had hair. But you started sort of reporting on Leicester for the Mercury down at the old Walker's Stadium, or Walker's Bowl, as it was nearly called.
2009. Yeah, it was 2009. It was the first season back in the Championship from League One. I started my career and I'd worked at my hometown paper, the Tamworth Herald, and I covered Tamworth for the best part of 7-8 years, and I really enjoyed that, going around non-league football. I got a lot of love for non-league football, and the characters are in it. I mean, if you ever seen the comedy series Rovers, you'll know what I'm. I see so much reality. It's like Spinal Tap for non-league football.
Well, I live in Poole, so when I first, when Leicester aren't playing. Or before I sort of got this involved, I used to go down and watch Poole Town, and it's great. I love
great atmosphere.
Football. It is.
It's very different, but it's very intimate. Yeah. So I did that, and then I went and covered the West Midlands clubs at the Birmingham Post and Mail for a couple of years. But then I got the opportunity. I got an invitation to go over and have an interview with the Leicester Mercury to be their number one Leicester City writer when Bill Anderson moved on to work for the club himself. Yes. And I got the job, and I didn't know a lot about Leicester at the time. In fact, the first game I went to watch them after that was a pre-season friendly, ironically, at Tamworth. So that was the first time I saw Bruno Berner.
I was going to say against Barcelona or Real Madrid.
No, well, that would come later on. I wouldn't realise at the time, but that would come later on. And so that was my introduction. Nigel was a very different character then as well. Nigel was the manager. Yeah. The club was very different. Milan Mandaric was running it, so there wasn't a lot of investment. And you wondered where the club was going. And then we had that phenomenal season when they got to the playoffs and Cardiff and Jan Kermorgant and all that. And that was my first season.
You sent the shiver down my back when you say that name.
But this is the crazy thing about the time I've covered Leicester City. Every season, there's been something happen. Everything's. I mean, if you think of that season with Kermorgant, Cardiff, Nige departing. Then we had the whole Paulo Sousa 9 league games, strange. Then we had the new ownership. Then we had Sven. Then we had, for the first time ever, I was invited for a pre-season tour. We went to Sweden and Austria, and it was, everything seemed to happen. There was always a story. There was always something going on. It's been remarkable. I mean, people talk about a Jamie Vardy movie. They could make a movie about Leicester City over the last 11, 12 years, and people wouldn't believe it. People wouldn't believe it was true. They'd think it was all made up. But it has happened, and it's all been crazy.
Yes. Yeah. So your first game was against the mighty Tamworth.
That was pre-season game. Yeah, that was the first game I went to see. I can't remember who won that. No,
and I think knowing Leicester, it probably was Tamworth.
Yeah, but there was. I can remember there was Wayne Brown. I think Danny and Gesson had just signed, and there was a few other lads. I think Martin Waghorn came on loan.
Yes, yes. So he missed the penalty as well as Jan Kermorgant, but of course it's the Jan Kermorgant one that always gets remembered. Yeah. I mean, Nigel Pearson. I was lucky enough because I lived down in Poole, and I went to watch Leicester play Bournemouth when Kevin Phillips scored the goal. And it was, I think it was the season we went up, and I was behind the Leicester dugout, and he came out, and obviously the game was over. A lot of the Bournemouth fans had left, so the shirt had come open with the Leicester shirt underneath, and he comes over and he spends time and he talks to you, completely different to his, on-screen persona of ostrich head and all that sort of thing. But I don't know whether he ever gets the full respect that he deserves for his part in us winning the Premier League.
Well, I hope he does, to be honest, because I mean, I have to be honest. When I first started, he was very difficult for me to deal with. He was very abrasive, and he wasn't very cooperative, and we didn't have the best of relationship because he didn't trust me. And I think he had this idea that at the time that the media were the enemy, so everybody was tarred with the same brush. But I knew there was a different side to him, and the way he deals with his players, the love he had from his players, and most of them anyway. And I've since then I've seen another side to him, and I know a lot of people that work with him still to this day, and they love him. And I think he's played a massive role in Leicester City's history. He's been so I hope that's never undervalued in terms of what the platform, it's a lot of the stuff that they do now. He started. I mean, all the sports science stuff that they did down the training ground. Excuse me, all the sports science stuff down the training ground and all that. The professionalism, the team spirit, the ethic, the leadership, the players' leadership group that still exists today with Jamie Vardy, Kasper Schmeichel, and all that in there. That was all he encouraged that. You know, him and Shakin that never went into the training, the home dressing room, the training ground. They left the players to police that. Any fines, the players policed. So a lot of the stuff that's still going on at the club today, that started around that period.
I mean, it was quite weird because we had got relegated for the first time to League One, and it's hard to think that, you know, one of the big games of that season in League One, the third tier, was Leicester versus Man City. Look at us now, but you know, and you know, a lot of people blame sort of Ollie for that. And again, I met Ollie because my son was a mascot in the days of when you only had one mascot, not sort of the 22 they have now. But you know, I don't think anybody could have kept us up. We were waiting to go down. We were just, you know, we were sort of struggling in the water, and then at some point we were going to sink. And unfortunately, Ollie proved what a good manager he was with Blackpool. You know, when he took them up. But, you know, Nigel Pearson came in and having just kept Southampton up at our expense, and he was the right man at the right time. And, you know, even when he came back, because of course he left, like you say, with the Sula moment and the spend. But, you know, and I was worried because living, as I say, on the South Coast like I do, I've seen Mandrich with Portsmouth, that he sold Portsmouth to probably one of the biggest con men that's ever sort of bought a football club. So when he said, well, you know, we've sold to these Thai investment companies, you're thinking like, who the hell are they? You know, what's he doing to us? Yeah,
we did this as well. I mean, you know, I come from the West Midlands where we've got a lot of overseas ownerships that have all gone terribly wrong. And and you don't have to, you can look further afield as well. I mean, Cardiff, Vincent Tan turning the Bluebirds to red. So when they came in, we all feared the worst. So we knew nothing about them. But it's been like winning the lottery in terms of football ownership. I mean, there's so many examples of terrible ownership around English football, and then you've got Kuntop. I mean, you saw it again at the weekend when they won the Shield. You know, the way the players celebrated with him, as we saw in the FA Cup final. Yeah. There's a togetherness, there's a direction, there's a leadership, and it comes from the top.
I think I did a post like, if Colesberg did football managers, and I went, oh, they do. Sorry, if Colesberg did football owners, then yes, they do. He owns Leicester. I mean, you know, it's big. But I mean, even like when you come, could you ever imagine? I could never have imagined Sven-Goran Eriksson being at Leicester.
Well, that was part of their learning curve when they had Sven in, because they thought they've got to get a big, high-profile international manager in, give him loads of money, not have a clear plan of how they're going to develop the team and progress that way. I mean, we saw the development of the club on the other side, but it was just crazy, wasn't it? I mean, I can remember being, as I said, in Sweden for that pre-season, and there seemed like there was a new player coming every other day. And joining the tour, it was because Sven had this policy of having 2 world-class players for every position. Well, the problem is that they all expect to play, so it's not conducive to having a really good team ethic, squad ethic, where everybody's pulling for each other. They're looking out a little bit for themselves, and it was just too much too soon, I thought, and they didn't have a game plan. But when they got Nigel in again for the second time, it was back to the game plan, and we saw that slowly come to fruition. I mean, there were some sticky moments as well. I mean, the night he was sacked and reinstated, it was.
No, go on. What do you know? Go on, just spill the beans on that night.
Well, they were effectively told, "That's it. Thank you very much." I mean, Craig Shakespeare told me in an interview for The Athletic that he was driving to watch a game at Birmingham City that night, and that day. And he got a call to say, look, brace yourself. It looks like we're going to get sacked. So he rung his wife and said, this is potentially
I
going to
love
happen.
the
So I
fact that
can't
he
see the
rang
point
you
going to this
first
game.
before his wife.
No, he didn't ring me. He didn't ring me.
Oh, right,
somebody
sorry.
rung him. Somebody rung him. Somebody rung him
Oh,
to say this might be happening.
right.
And
Right.
he rung his wife and said, "Look, I might be out of work here, so there's no point me going to the game." So he came, turned around, got home. Then he got a call from Nige saying, "Actually, it's all okay now." And I think what happened was, I think one of the owners made a decision to make a change, and I think it was Vichai that jumped in and reversed it.
Yeah.
So I mean, that was a strange day, and it turned out to be a brilliant decision as well, didn't it?
Didn't it just, and like you say, it was a learning curve for them, because it would have been so easy after the Watford defeat in the playoffs to have got rid of Nigel again. Then
they feared it. They were expecting it as well that time. They thought that was it. The plug was going to get pulled after that Watford game, but it wasn't, and they were rewarded for that decision.
That next season was one of the best seasons as a Leicester. Well, at that point, we've had a few since then. At that point, they'd learned from it, hadn't they? And we just pushed everybody aside, and of course got up, and we had then the Great Escape year.
Yeah,
and that was that. Like I say, I watching Cambiasso. I was there for the 5-3. I ended up in some woman's lap who I've no idea who she was that was next to me at the time when we scored. I mean, that Man United game, that was definitely one of those I was there moments. And then it all went wrong.
Well, the Great Escape season was incredible, because every week we were turning up and thinking, they played quite well. They've only lost by a goal, and they were getting punished for minor errors and the little moments where they switched off, and they were learning that in the top flight against Premier League teams, if you switch off for a second, you're going to get punished and you're going to lose the game. And also they had a lot of bad luck as well, and it did get to the stage where we all thought, wow, we better get used to a season back in the Championship. But then, and this is all part of the Leicester City story, isn't it? That phenomenal run at the last 9 games when Marco Brighton came in as a wing back. They changed the 3 centre backs. Robert Hoof came in on loan, and after serving a ban for playing a gender sort of identification game on Twitter, which he got banned for, which is typical of Robert Hoof, really.
Typical of Leicester, isn't it? It's all about players, isn't it?
It was just a phenomenal run, and then Jamie Vardy clicked. Suddenly we started to see his potential, and it was just phenomenal. It's just, as I said earlier in the show, it's you can make a movie about it, and that would be just an extraordinary part of that.
I remember me and my son had season tickets, and from Poole to Leicester, it's like a 7 and a bit hour return journey, and we were going up every home game and driving back after every home game, having lost, But my God, that feeling when we started winning, and we stayed up. Although it was the 0-0, it was just, I can say that to me in that one season sums how being a Leicester supporter up.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the roller coaster ride. I mean, it's never it's never easy for Leicester fans. It isn't. I mean, I know that they're living in halcyon days right now, but that season in particular, everybody was writing them off, and then to come back. I mean, that game at Sunderland, the 0-0 draw, is one of the most boring games I've ever seen. But I was so pleased to sit there and watch that because of the outcome, and they did it remarkably with a game to spare.
I know. Yes. Yeah. It's like you say. It's. That's what supporting Leicester means. And of course, the following year, well, we all know the miracle that happened, and of course that led to this 5,000 to 1, the Leicester City Story, which is the book you wrote about it. Still available on Amazon, everybody. And if you if you look in the link on YouTube, you've got Rob Tanner's athletic page link, so you can click on that to read Rob's stories, but also the link to the Amazon page where you can still buy this. But you did say you are doing the sort of 5,000 to 1, the revenge.
Well, we've got a revised edition coming out in October, and it's with 5 new chapters covering 5 of the biggest talking points from the last 5 years since then. So it's still very much the original book, but with 5 extra chapters. So that's coming out in October as well, just to reflect what's happened since then. I mean, the miracle as a one-off that season, and that book features a lot of the blogs that I was writing at the time for the Leicester Mercury as it was happening. And it got to around the Christmas time when they were top. It was just before Christmas, and everybody started taking notice of Leicester. And we started getting a lot of media inquiries from Europe and around the world. So the first thing they'd do is would call our sports desk and ask to speak to me, or one of my colleagues, James Sharp, was covering the club with me at the time. And so we were doing a lot of these radio and TV interviews. And I can remember one around Christmas. It was an American radio station, and they couldn't even say Leicester. They called it Leicester. Leicester City, and all this lot. And I said, you wouldn't believe this story. I said, in the time I've been covering this has happened, that has happened, doing a great escape. Now 5,000 to 1 on course for. I mean, I didn't think they were going to win the title at the time. I just thought it was going to be one of those seasons where Leicester fans would cherish. Ultimately, would end in disappointment to some level, to some degree. Yeah. And they said to me, well, I would love to read that book one day. And I thought, okay, perhaps I should write a book about it. And so we started working on that, and I've managed to turn that around in about 3 months. And in fact, the intro I wrote on the press bench at Chelsea after the last game of the season. That's how quickly we turned it around. And
while it was still fresh, literally.
Really
fresh.
So I hope it reflects the fact that, it's lived. I mean, that book is lived.
The funny thing is, like you said, with the book and how you were contacted, I think as a blogger at the time, and I blogged for the Metro, and I did a bit in the Sun, and we were getting contacts from, like you said, all over the world, and I was sort of having to sort of ring another blogger up and say, like, what are you doing on Thursday? Oh, I'm free on Thursday. Well, can you do a New Zealand interview? Because I'm double booked. Well, I'll take that one off you if you can do Saturday for me with Japan. Like you say, it was.
There were so many fans who were doing that.
It was almost like, and I've never said this, but I was so glad when the season was over because you could actually relax. Yeah. And that I am, like I said, at the time I was 55, and I've always hated tattoos. And in a drunken Facebook post, I said, if Leicester are top for Christmas, I will have a tattoo. And of course, you should never put anything like that on social media.
Oh dear.
Yeah, Leicester never do what you want, and of course they were top at Christmas, weren't they? So I ended up with chat shit get banged on my arm. But I mean, looking at that season, I mean, at what point did you think this could be on?
Man City away. I mean, that's the first game in my whole career that I got caught in traffic on the M6 I missed a kickoff of. I've never missed a kickoff for a game. I've always been there in plenty of time. And so I'd missed the Robert Hoof opening goal. And I got in and like, I think we're 15, 20 minutes in. And I thought, I'm expecting a Man City siege now. Leicester have got their noses ahead. They're probably against a run of play, a set piece, as it was. And but then I sat there bewildered as he outplayed them. And then that Mahrez goal was something else. And then Hoof getting his second as well in typical Hoof fashion. And it was just a great day. And I come away from the stadium that day thinking, you know what, this is crazy. If they carry on if they can come here and do that. And then I think the other game was Crystal Palace away. And they went there. I mean, Palace has not been a particularly great hunting ground. No. And they went there and they won that day, and the fans just wouldn't leave. Wouldn't leave the stadium. And the stadium announcer, or I think it might have been the police, saying, thank you very much, Leicester City. Well done. We hope you go on and win the title, but can you please go home now? And they were still there. And because as a journalist, we operate in mix zones after games, or we did before COVID. Yeah. So you go into the mix zone and you'd wait for the players to come out their changing room and walk to the bus, and then you can ask them to stop and talk about the game. Normally these places are indoors, but not at Palace. It's literally an outdoor changing room. So I was stood there waiting for players to come through in this little barrier area, and all I can hear is the Leicester fans singing, "We're going to win the league. Now you're going to believe us. We're going to win the league." And it went on and on and on. And journalists from other newspapers, other organisations that weren't associated with Leicester were tapping him in the shoulder and going, "What? what's going on?
Yes.
This is crazy. This is nuts. So that was a special day as well.
I'm sat here just smiling because, even talking about it, as a Leicester fan is amazing. Ranieri, when we signed him, I mean, we know, unfortunately, Pearson left us and what happened. And we, that was one of those things that happens at clubs. But, we brought Ranieri in. Now, I can remember, this is another thing that I'm actually sort of quite pleased about myself here and pat myself on the head. I can remember doing a blog for the Metro, and I've still got the link to it. If anybody ever questions that I didn't do it, I have got the link to it. And I remember saying, yes, Ranieri was coming for post-Greece job, and he hadn't won a title in his time, but he'd got plenty of second places, plenty of cups and what have you. And I said, if he can come to Leicester and give us a couple of second places and a cup, and he wants to come, then I think he'll be all right. Little did I know, obviously, what he was going to do. Well, you were, oh my God, what like a bit like a Lineker. Oh my God, what are we doing signing him? Or did you? It
was a strange one. It was such a strange process because I don't know if you remember Preki night. You remember when Preki, the American coach, formerly Yugoslavia, was suddenly the odds were slashed on him, and he went into odds on to be the next Leicester City boss because he had announced he was in charge of some second tier American team, and he announced he was leaving
to the Premier League.
They was going to. He was taking up a dream role in England.
Yes,
and all the odds were slashed on him, and we thought this can't be true. We'd never heard of this fella, and then we tuned into a live feed from his press conference at his club in America, and he was talking about this dream job in England and they kept asking him about, is it Leicester City? And he wouldn't say, and we thought, this can't be true. But we were all glued to it, thinking, this would be so like Leicester City if it was, because, expect the strange. But it turned, I think I remember that Gus Hiddink was linked, Martin O'Neill, a return for Martin O'Neill was muted. Claudio Ranieri was actually one of the first people to publicly put his hat in the ring for that one. And 2 weeks later, he was showing up at the Austrian training camp, being unveiled as the new manager. So I think they went around the Wrekin in the search for a new manager, and they ended up with Claudio. And everybody was like, okay, this might not work. I mean, he was odds on to be the first sacked.
Yeah, he was.
And the club had just stayed up, and that was due to Nigel Pearson and the team spirit and the fact they were all playing for him and committed to him, and then he's gone in strange circumstances. So we thought this is a disaster waiting to happen here, but oh wow, it wasn't, was it?
Well, no, and I mean, you were saying about the American guy there, but literally it was every day that you turn on your computer when you woke up, somebody else was being linked with the job. It was, and I did a Photoshop and I put my name in at something like 15-1. And I got all these things on the social. Who's this guy? Do you know? I mean, we were being linked with one man and his dog, but it was. Looking back, it was amazing, and we went on, and obviously, had we, I think, stayed up and then had a couple of seasons of sort of maybe mid-table, I don't think it would have been the story that it was.
Yeah, but maybe. The fact that it was, they just survived, and then they got Claudio in, and they were still the Tinkerman sort of tag that was attached to him. And I think as well, he was nicknamed, instead of Claudio, Clownio, because of his use of English at times in the past at Chelsea, which was very cruel. So it wasn't a massive, fantastic vibe about it. And I think the players probably were a bit like that as well. When he turned up, they were all like, well, what's going on? Should we just carry on doing what we're doing with Shaky? And they did. And one of the brilliant things that Claudio did do right from the offset was he didn't change anything. Didn't change the backroom team. Brought his own guys in, but he kept all the guys before. He didn't change a lot about the way they played. He just wanted to have a little look at it. He didn't speak to them too much when they were in Austria. He didn't get involved in the training. He let things. He recognised that there was something there that had given the chance for the great escape. There was a team spirit and a morale, and he fostered that rather than tearing everything apart and building it how he wanted it. Because lot of people in football are very ego-driven, and a lot of managers will go in and say, well, this is how I'm going to do it, and they start from scratch and throw everything out and start again. But Claudio didn't, which was very, very intelligent.
And leading on for that, I think unfortunately he probably did have to go when he went. As much as I loved him, I'd have his children. And we've got to be honest, what he's done, but
incredibly sad, wasn't it? When he was.
He started to make his own changes, a bit like Peter Taylor. Oh God, I can't believe I still say that word, not choke. But when he didn't do anything and just left the team that Martin had left him, he was doing well. As soon as they start making their own decisions, it goes wrong. But quarterfinals of the Champions League the following season, it was again, the dream was carrying on.
Well, again, it's the expectation level, isn't it? After you've won the title, the expectations go through the roof, and I don't think Leicester knew how to handle it at the time. I mean, they suddenly had all this money, and they started to spend it. I mean, they broke the transfer record 3 times that summer. Papi Mendy, Ahmed Musa, and then finally Islam Slimani. And I did an interview with Steve Walsh, the former head of recruitment, and he was telling me about he went to Everton to be director of football at that time. Yeah. And one of the things he was trying to say to them, he was trying to warn them against signing Slimani. And as soon as he left, they went and signed Slimani because Claudio wanted him. And it didn't. It hasn't worked out. So in hindsight, so that was probably the area where Claudio, he tried to change too much too soon. Straight after that, he probably thought, "Wow, that's just such a phenomenal achievement." But everybody's going to find us out now, so we've got to change the way we play. We've got to act like a big team now and spend some money and get some players in, and it just sort of disrupted things. But also, I think the Champions League distraction was a factor as well. It was all new. A lot of the players had never experienced anything like that. And so, that became the focus for the season. And what a campaign that was as well. It was amazing for Leicester fans.
I can remember, I'm not having a dig at Arsenal again, but it happened to be Arsene Wenger that said Leicester will be an embarrassment to English football. The
coefficient, they were going to damage the coefficient.
Yes, that was it. Yeah, and we weren't allowed first of all in the ICC Cup, and yet there we were. Arsenal having lost 10 goals in over 2 legs, we were the last English team or the last British team in Europe, quarterfinals, and I was there. And this is the thing, I was there with my son. I've seen, with my son, I've seen us win the Premier League. I've seen us be in the Champions League quarterfinal. I've now seen us win the FA Cup. I've seen us win the Community Shield. What we've done in this last 7 years that we've been in the Premier League, it's just unbelievable.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, what I found really interesting about the International Champions Cup was the press conference, and like all these big clubs were turning out some of their major legends. I think there was like Pirlo and all that sort of like people there, and then Birchie comes out last, and he takes to the stand, and he turns around to the morning and says, "We're going to catch you up." It was just Birchie being Birchie, and I love him. But what that did, not just the title, but going over to America as well, because I was lucky enough to go over to Santa Monica when they were out there for a week, and I saw the reaction. And suddenly, I mean, this is the thing about the Big Six and Leicester. The advantage they've got is they've got a massive global brand. The Premier League is the biggest league in the world. They're seen as the biggest clubs. So fans in other countries, they pick one of the Big Six. Suddenly, for a change, fans in other countries in America and that were looking at Leicester City and going, underdogs, we like that. And attaching themselves. And I can remember being outside a sports shop in Santa Monica for some of the lads were turning up with a trophy to meet and greet. And we thought, well, there might not be many people here. I mean, Leicester City are not a big name over here. And I remember driving down the road past this sports shop, and the queue for people to get in went round the block. And in America, a block is a big, big thing. Yes. It went round and round and round the back. And they were there for ages, signing, posing for photos. It was just phenomenal to see. And then we went to the StubHub Centre for the game against PSG, which didn't turn out particularly well. But in the build up to the game, the the barbecues they have in the car park and all that sort of stuff. Yeah. Tailgate parties they're called, aren't they? That they were in full swing, and there was a lot of Leicester flags, and I think the Leicester City merchandise sold out in minutes. Yes. I mean, I think PSG brought a lot more than Leicester did. I don't think Leicester realised and didn't take a lot of merchandise, but it sold out. And they've got fan clubs now in all over America to Leicester.
Where, I mean, we've got Brendan in, we brought him in, and I know he left Celtic acrimoniously, and it upset Chris Sutton just a little bit, to say the least. Yeah. How's that working out for you at Celtic there, Chris? How are they doing? But
the funny thing about that was I was asked to go on 5 Live not that long ago it was in the back of my mind, and I had an opportunity to say something because Chris Sutton basically said to me, he said, because we were talking about Leicester City no longer being the Big Six, it's the Big Seven, and Leicester being not wanting to be one of the Big Six. And that's the question he asked me. He said, "Do Leicester City want to be one of the Big Six? Do they want to be as big as the Big Six?" And I should have said, "Yeah, but they just want to be bigger than Celtic's reserves, Chris." But I let the opportunity slip, and I regret that. I wish I'd said that, because I mean I can see what he's saying about Celtic and their fan base, but it's the Premier League. It's a bigger league than the Scottish
League. We've got him now. We've got Brendan.
That's why he came.
We're still making these good signings. Where can we go? Where how far can this journey take us?
God, you never say never with Leicester City, do you? You would never have said 5,000 to 1. So I'm just enjoying the ride, following the club.
Yeah.
It's incredible now with the plans for the new stadium. Well, not new stadium, but the new stand at the stadium. Yeah. With the what's happening as well around the training ground, the players they're trying to sign, the recruitment process, the fact they've got Brendan in, and everybody's predicting a bigger club or whatever, but he seems more than happy to be doing what he's doing at Leicester. And top 4, that's the target. I mean, I know qualifying for Europe would still be a fantastic achievement for this club, considering the revenue and the budget they've got, because it's not even top 7, but they're there challenging the top 4. So it's still a bit of a minor miracle they're up there, but the spirit and the attitude of the culture at the club makes you believe they could achieve anything.
It would be remiss of me if I don't, because everybody in the chat here, in the side chat, I know you can't see that, but they're asking me about this player, about that player. So
transfers.
I'm going to quickly touch on transfers. I mean, the 4 that I want to talk about coming in, first of all, at the back, because we obviously need somebody at the back. And the Kabak seems to be the one that won't go away. But we've also now Vestergaard from Southampton, unless you know of anybody else. But they seem to be the 2 that, and Tarkowski, of course, at Burnley. I would like, to be honest with you, I think we need, for me, and we've lost Wes and we've lost Christian from the back. I know we've got Ryan in now, but, Johnny, he's just over that age where when he's out injured, it's going to take him longer to come back in. What about Gary Cahill on a season? He's free.
Right. What I can say is that they've been having meetings the end of last week, and they were looking at all their options. Gary Cahill would be one of them, but they've got to weigh up what they really want to do. I think they're looking more domestically at this time. I think they want somebody that's ready to go straight away in the Premier League, somebody with Premier League history experience, ideally. Tarkowski is a difficult one because of the way Burnley have been approaching it. He's still got a year left on his contract, but he's refusing to sign another deal. He would like to leave, but Burnley are holding out for a huge amount of money, and Leicester haven't got a massive amount of money. They're going to have to dig deep to make this deal happen, because originally the plan before Fofana's injury was just to get a winger in, a left-footed, right-sided winger in on loan. Or either a free if there was one, but on loan, because the budget, I mean, they spent £40 million and they haven't sold anybody yet. I mean, that's that's the reality of the COVID situation. People don't understand, I don't think, or appreciate.
Especially because of the business that our owners are in.
Yeah, exactly. Tourism has been hit more than anything else. But also, we talked about the big six. There is a difference in terms of their finances. That global brand that I mentioned, that brings in a lot more revenue, and that's why they're still spending huge amounts of money. Leicester aren't in that position right now. They've made so much ground on them, but there's still so much ground to make. So there isn't an endless pot. I mean, I know I've read people on social media talking about going out and spending £250,000 a week on Coutinho and things like that. They're not in a position to be able to do that, and I don't think they'd want to do that.
You've broken my heart now. I've been dreaming of Coutinho in a blue shirt.
No, I mean what they'd like to have is that team. One of the strengths and the secrets behind them is the team spirit they have. And I know there are players on different amounts of money, but it's not a massive disparity between all of them. I mean, the likes of Casper and Vardy will obviously be earning more than anything in Yuri if he agrees to sign the contract. Will be up there as well. So, but they don't want to. They can't go and then sign somebody who's going to be earning over double that and causing problems themselves, because that's and they wouldn't be able to do it. They're not in a position to be able to do that. Yeah. But in terms going back to the centre back, they want somebody with a bit of Premier League experience. Tarkowski, as I said, might be difficult, but there's been an interest there. Vestergaard might be the one that they look at. Again, similar situation. Year to go his contract, wants to leave, refused to sign a new contract. Southampton seems to be that people are picking the bones off him at the moment in terms of some of the players that they're going for. He could go for 10 to 15 million, but there's other options, as I said, Kale, but also loans. I mean, Man United have got an abundance of centre backs at the moment. They can't get them all in. So then you've got the situation where United are probably looking at Leicester now and thinking, well, they're a rival. Do we want to do business with them? But I know there's good relations between Leicester and Man United from the Maguire deal, which Susan Whedon personally negotiated that one because she got on really well with the hierarchy at United. So I think, it's going to be interesting. I think it's going to go to the wire as well. I don't think we're going to have anything absolutely imminent. I know people talk about Kabak and Demiral and these types of players, but they're a bit of a gamble, in the situation that Leicester are in, because they'd need time to acclimatise. I mean, we saw with Cengiz Under, there's no guarantees when you get a player coming into the country.
That was such a big disappointment for me, because I had such high hopes, and it didn't happen. It happens like that. Kabak, I do worry because, Liverpool haven't signed him when they were offered him. He's virtually available on a free now almost, and they still don't want him. That's what worries me. But, like you say, it is the priority now, is that centre-back position.
Oh, absolutely. And that Fofana injury, I mean, I felt so positive in pre-season. The performance in the first half against Villarreal, and certainly the performance in the first half against Man City as well. I thought that was fantastic football. They looked sharp. They looked like they were playing with a pattern. There was a purpose about them. I thought they were going into the season in great shape. That injury to Fofana has just really upset everything. And it's certainly changed how they're looking to operate in the transfer market now for the last 3 weeks. So I don't think they were planning on bringing in a centre-back right now, but now they have to. But it's a case of seeing who is available, who's willing to sell. It's so many variants. I mean, I think some fans look at it in a simplistic way and think that if you want a centre back, to go out and spend X amount of money and you'll get one. There's so many different variants. There's so many dominoes that lined up this time of year in the transfer window. As we saw in the last transfer window, when Hamza was going to go to, I think it was Newcastle. And Chalabar was going to come in. It was all a game of dominoes. One had to fall before the others could do, and none of them did in the end. So these things can happen, but I think they're quite confident they're going to get somebody in, but they're going to have to dig deep for it.
Yeah. Right wing is possibly that sort of having to take a back burner now. Maybe once Castagna's fit, we'll have more of an option down that side with him and Piera. Again, I've got to ask you, I mean, Tielemans, Liverpool, Ndidi, Man United, Maddison, Arsenal.
Oh, that's no, I don't think any of those. I don't think. I know every summer They've sold one player.
Yeah.
And we've sort of known going into the transfer window that who that's going to be. We knew Maguire to United. We knew a year before. We knew Mahrez, Man City. We knew a year before. N'Golo Kante, we didn't know because he had a release clause in his contract. And as far as I was aware, they haven't put a release clause in the contract since. Because that really, they've learned. They've learned as they've gone on.
Yeah.
Ben Chilwell, we knew around Christmas that Ben was going to probably end up at Chelsea. I've not heard too much concrete stuff about any of them leaving. I know there's a lot of chat about Maddison to Arsenal, and I've had a lot of Arsenal fans on social media having a dig at me because and Brendan backed it up because I said there's been no contact from Arsenal to Leicester, and Brendan said it in the last press conference as well. As far as he's aware, nobody's coming for Maddison. They might be interested at Arsenal, and people around Arsenal, they'll probably be talking about it, that Arsenal admire Maddison, but it's going to cost a lot of money to get James Maddison out. And as I said, you look around the environment, Leicester City, James Maddison, he's going to be an important player for Leicester this season. He's going to play on a regular basis. He was on the verge of the England squad before his hip injury flared up again. You look at the environment that he's working in at the new training ground, stuff like that. It'll be a big tempter for him to go. And I don't know whether he'd be tempted or not, but as far as I'm aware, Leicester are quite relaxed about the situation. Tielemans to Liverpool, again, I don't think anything has happened on that. And but I've spoken to his agents and they say he's happy at Leicester. He loves working with Brendan. But there's always that caveat.
There's always a but, isn't there? Yes.
But, he wants to play at the highest level, and that's the Champions League.
Well, of course. I mean, it's good. People said, because we didn't finish in the top four, we wouldn't be able to attract the top players. And yet 2 of the 3 signings we made are both come from clubs that would qualify for the Champions League in one form or another. But what I think about Leicester now is, and somebody said, you're a selling club. And I went, we're not a selling club. Yeah, you've got to sell somebody every year. And I went, because you've got clubs like the big ones, if you like, that come in and make us ridiculous offers. Because we've seen Grealish. We're going to possibly see with Kane. If the money's right, a player is for sale.
Yeah, that's the reality of the situation.
On our terms.
That's the reality of the situation. And Leicester know that. And that's why they try and protect themselves with contracts. They try to get their best young players on long-term contracts. So if a situation comes along where a club does offer a ridiculous amount of money, like the Maguire situation, because United were in for Maguire before he signed that new deal, and that strengthened Leicester's hand, because obviously he was then looking at, I'm going to get a bigger wage for a short period of time, and I'm still going to get potentially my move to United, which he did get. It just meant that Leicester were in a stronger position to negotiate with United. And I think that's what they're trying to get themselves into the situation with Tielemans. And if you look at Ndidi and all the other lads that are on site, that have signed new deals, even though they had several years left on their old deals, it's just to protect themselves in those situations. So they're in the strongest bargaining position they can be. And the reality is clubs will come in for their players. And there will be interest. I mean, the pandemic at the moment has changed things a little bit, but I think they're always looking ahead. I mean, for example, Samari's come in. Now, he's probably somebody that would be a replacement for Ndidi. If somebody came in for Ndidi and offered £70 million for him, they've got somebody who's ready-made to step in. I mean, when Ben Chilwell moved on, they thought, well, let's try and bring James Justin, Luke Thomas. They were trying to think ahead. They always try and think ahead. We had to
stand you for Maguire, didn't we? Because he'd been here a year before.
So they're always trying to think ahead a little bit. I mean, when Maguire, they got in 2 players. They had Söyüncü and Benkovic to see which one was going to be the fit. Söyüncü turns out he was the fit. Benkovic, I don't know what's really. I honestly don't know what's happened with that, because he came with a bit of reputation of being a promising young defender, and he hasn't really done it. But
Brendan loved him at Celtic, but obviously doesn't see him as a Premier League player.
No, exactly, and it's a big difference there.
Yes.
Yeah.
But Rob, it's been fantastic. Thank you so much for coming on. Your book, it is available on Amazon. I say the link to the book is in the YouTube description, and also the link to your the Athletic page. You've got, I say, the 5,000 to 1 Plus book coming out. When's that due out?
It's in October. I haven't got an exact date at the moment, but hopefully, all being well, that'll be out, and the fans might enjoy that.
Well, it'll be great to have you back on, and we'll give that a bit of a push when it comes out if you're interested.
Thank you.
It's your private time, so I really do appreciate you giving up this time.
No, anytime.
And fill it in. Really do appreciate it. Stay safe. All the best to you, all your friends and family. And I say, look forward to speaking to you again soon. Thank you very, very, very much.
Thank you.
All the best. Bye-bye. Thanks to Rob there. What a nice guy. Oh, hey. So, when he said, let me just get rid of this. He's where do we go? Honestly, I used to be good at this. Yeah, right. Never said nobody ever. You know what? I said to him, indeed, and he went, mm-mm. I said to him, Tillermans, and he went, mm-mm. And I went to Madison, and he went, mm-mm. Who knows? Never say never, of course. And if somebody comes in, put the money on the table, and that's the difference. You see, if we sell now, we sell when on our terms, and that is the big difference. But hey, who knows what the future is bright, the future is blue. We've got this coming up at the weekend.
The Premier League is back, and we've got it all covered here on Leicester Till I Die TV. Subscribe.
It is back on Saturday, Thursday, Friday. We're going to have the preview shows. Post-match Saturday, we'll be back. And then on Monday, we'll be talking to a Wolves fan and looking back at the game. And then they sound a bit worried. Guys, that was a great chat. My great thanks to Rob for coming on. Like I say, subscribe to The Athletic. I've actually written a piece for The Athletic about racism in football. That's available still. Brilliant value for money. It's a great read. Better than a lot of the red tops. That's a lie, actually. Probably better than all the red tops. So give it a read. The Athletic, obviously online there. I will see you in about 10 minutes on a chat with my Man United friend Keane, named after Roy Keane. Shame his dad didn't like Wan-Bissaka. Good night. See you tomorrow. Bye now.
Hello, Matt Elliott here. Be sure to watch Leicester Till I Die TV on YouTube and follow all them social media platforms for all the latest updates and news on Leicester City Football Club.
Thanks for watching Leicester Till I Die. This is Chris saying goodbye, and see you next time.
To an end. But the fun doesn't have to stop here. If you have any questions, suggestions, or feedback, head over right now to Twitter and Facebook and like, share, and get involved. Join us next time.